to the words of the Master.
I just got John 2:13. Oh, you want to Matthew 17?
Yeah, so with the words of the Master, we are going to talk about the one the disciples couldn't heal. The one the disciples couldn't heal, which is Matthew 17, 14 through 21, Mark 9, 14 through 29, and Luke 9, 37 through 43. I think what we're going to do is read Mark's account. We'll reference back to both Matthew and Luke, but I think for the most part we have more in Mark. There's slight variations, which again we'll reference back to, but we can get the total gist, I think, if we look at Mark chapter 9, and we'll just go ahead and read through 14 through 29.
Mark 9, chapter 9, verse 14. And coming to the taught ones, he saw a large crowd around them, and scribes disputing with them. And immediately, when all the crowd saw him, they were greatly astonished, and running near, greeted him. And he asked the scribes, "What are you disputing with them?" And one of the crowd answering said, "Teacher, I brought you my son, who has a dumb spirit, and wherever he seizes him, he throws him down, and he foams at the mouth and gnashes his teeth, and he wastes away. I spoke to your taught ones, and that they should cast him out, but they were not able." And he answered him and said, "O unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him to me." So they brought him to him, and when he saw him, immediately the spirit threw him into convulsions. And falling on the ground, he rolled about, foaming at the mouth. And he answered his father, "How long has he been like this?" And he said, "From childhood. And often he has thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if it is at all possible for you, have compassion on us and help us." And Yeshua said to him, "If you are able to believe, all is possible to him who believes." And immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "I believe, Master, help my unbelief." And when Yeshua saw that the crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit and said to him, "You deaf and dumb spirit, I order you, come out of him and never again enter into him." And crying out and convulsing him much, it came out of him. And he became as one dead, so that many said that he was dead. But Yeshua, taking him by the hand, lifting him up, and he arose. And when he came into a house, his taught ones asked him separately, were we unable to cast him out?" And he said to them, "It is impossible for this kind to come out except through prayer and fasting."
Okay, very good. Very good. So let us go back up to the beginning and look at this. This is at some point after the transfiguration, whether it was right after, whether it was like however long it took from Yeshua and the three disciples to come back from where they were, whether they was able to just come right back like they just came from over there, like the same day, or whatever the process was in terms of them going from this to that. But whatever that was, there was something that was going on with the disciples, the rest of the disciples, the 9 that were left over. And, apart from Yeshua and the 3 disciples that were with him. And so when we look at Mark here, they were coming to where the disciples were, again, because it was away from them. And they're over there disputing with the scribes. Now, the scribes were kind of they were the officials of the Torah. If you wanted that, like the scribes dealt with the Pharisees, because the Pharisees, they read and studied the law. The scribes would be the ones that would they were the writers, right? And so they kind of officiated kind of legal types of things. So they were in the know of kind of the ins and outs of Torah because of the fact that they were involved, in the way that they were involved. So they're here disputing with these disciples that were behind. And so when you look at this, and you kind of look at verse 16, say for instance, when Yeshua comes and he asks, what are you disputing with them? And then in verse 17, the father begins to talk. And so when I'm just looking at this, I'm trying to figure out, first of all, is he talking to the disciples? Is he talking to the crowd? Is he talking to the scribes? Did he ask a question and then there wasn't no answer to the question that he had? Like what is it that they were disputing? It doesn't say as you're going down what they're talking about. I initially, looking at it, was, how the Pharisees and the scribes and the Pharisees all come together and they're always testing Messiah. They're testing him, they'll ask him questions, they'll try to catch the master, and jam them up with their various questionings and arguments that they bring, and they'll try to stump the rabbi. And so it seems like there's kind of that kind of a thing, potentially that kind of a thing going on with the scribes and the remaining disciples. It says disputing. They're having some type of argument. They're having some type of discussion. But what? And then, it says verse 16, it literally says he asked the scribes. Mm-hmm. So he directs his question to the scribes. Why are you sitting up here talking to my people and I ain't around? What y'all talking about? What y'all disputing over here? But they don't answer though. That's the thing. The scribes don't answer.
They're afraid to talk.
Huh?
They're afraid to talk to them. They don't want those problems.
They don't want the smoke. It seems. Because they didn't never answer. It's the guy, because there's the scribes, there's the disciples, and there's a crowd around, and someone in the crowd answers. But when we look at this, it seems like the person in the crowd is involved. Because it seems that the thing that they're disputing is, in fact, the disciples' inability to cast out this, to heal this actual the son here. That's the whole point of the thing. So yes, Yeshua may go to the scribes and he's questioning them. They don't say nothing. The disciples, they probably don't say nothing, probably out of, I don't know, embarrassment maybe, because they wasn't able to. Maybe they tried and nothing happened. The scribes are sitting up there talking, well, ain't y'all the disciples? Why can't y'all do what y'all came here to do? Yeshua comes and asks the scribes, what y'all sitting up, why you sitting up here disputing with my people? And the guy who it involves, verse 17, and one of the crowd answers. He's the one who answers. He literally said, I brought you my son. Go up, let's go over to Matthew real fast. Go to Matthew 17 and 16, because this is something that's added in Matthew that helps us to have this understanding of what they're talking about here. Matthew 17 and verse 16.
Matthew 17, verse 16. And I brought him to your taught ones, and they were unable to heal him. Keep going down.
No, that's good right there.
Okay.
That's the problem there. The problem is that he sees the disciples of Yeshua. They at this point too must have a type of reputation because he sent them out to go out and do things that he had done. And so he brings his son to them thinking that he's able to have his son be healed, and then nothing happens. And so the scribes, they're probably doing whatever it is that they do, probably talking bad about him in some way. And then along comes Yeshua. And so it's interesting when you look over here at what Yeshua has to say in terms of let's go back to Mark 9. Read again verse 17.
Mark 9:17, and one of the crowd answering said, Teacher, I brought you my son who has a dumb spirit.
Okay, very good. So this, of course, has nothing to do with intellect. Right? It's not like the kid was like LD or something. He wasn't very smart. Learning disability. I don't know. He didn't talk sometimes. Right? They call that dumb. Right? Sometimes he doesn't say anything. So the guy has an understanding that this thing that is happening with his child is spiritual. He has this spirit on him that causes him to not speak. It's interesting when we think about Pinchas, the mouth of the serpent, right? We'll just kind of have that thought in our minds. But the spirit that comes on his child causes him to be speechless. Also, if we go back to Matthew, another thing that this spirit that the Father recognizes as the issue is this spirit on him. Let's go back to Matthew 17 and look at verse 15, because there's more things that are involved in this thing, this spirit that is plaguing this child. Matthew 17 and 15.
It says, Master, have compassion on my son, for he is an epileptic and suffers badly, for he often falls into the fire and often into the water.
Okay, so the spirit that gets on him not only renders him silent, causes him not to speak, but he also, it says that he is epileptic. Look at that word there, epileptic. Pull that up there in the Greek. You got that there, lunatic?
Lunatic.
To be moonstruck, crazy, lunatic.
Crazy, yeah.
Right? And so, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was justified, but for whatever reason, there was a connection between, in these people's minds at the time anyway, the moon, and its phases. I don't know if they got worse as the moon got more brilliant or what have you, but there was a connection in these people's minds of the time anyway, where they're blaming, associating strange behaviors with the moon. That's where the whole word lunatic even came from.
That's real. Like, I know, like, teachers, like, they'll be like, oh, the children are just acting so rambunctious today. And someone just throw out, oh, it must be like a full moon. But, like, people do, like, but it was a full moon. Like, they were acting crazy.
No, that's a real thing.
I mean, people say, like, it must be a full moon.
I mean, people say it. I mean, people say many things. I don't know just because that is, but what I'm saying is that the idea of there being a connection to the moon is the reason why that they called it that. What I'm saying is that I don't know if necessarily that has anything to do with it, but people have associated it with it for a long time. And so what would happen is that the son, or people like him, would both not say anything and try to hurt himself. Jumping in the fire, jumping in the water, like doing things to himself that will hurt him, that will cause him harm. I guess cyclically, right? He would do this cyclically, like on a cycle. Things would happen, things would come upon him. And so, this is going back to Matthew. If we go back to Matthew, this is the way that the man describes this thing that's going on with him. That was kind of embedded in the son for a long time, and both the son and, of course, the father had no rest. If we go back to Matthew, here, let's read again Matthew 9 and verse 18.
Matthew 9 and 18.
Chapter 9 of Mark.
Excuse me, Mark 9, 18.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Mark 9 and 18.
Yeah.
It says, and wherever he seizes him, he throws him down. He foams at the mouth and gnashes his teeth, and he wastes away. And I spoke to your top ones that they should cast him out, but they were not able.
Okay, very good. So he tries to hurt himself. He has these physical manifestations of things, these foams at the mouth, gnashing of his teeth. He's in great, they talk about gnashing of teeth is when you do that when you're in pain, right? So he has this pain that happens inside of him. He throws himself down, he hurts himself, he's recognized that he's being seized by something. And this, I guess we say, powerful thing that had possessed this son was more powerful than the disciples. Now, the interesting thing that I want to kind of concentrate on here is Yeshua's response to all of this in verse 19. Let's look at verse 19.
And he answered him and said, O unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him to me.
Okay, so he's not necessarily speaking to the guy here, because he's not really with the guy. He's with his disciples. Yeshua, it seems at this point, thinks that his disciples should have been able to do something here. Because he says to them, "Oh, unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you?" Like he's upset with his disciples because of the fact that they wasn't able to do this, right? This version says, Mark's version says, "Oh, unbelieving generation," but Matthew's version says unbelieving and perverted. Let's go over to Matthew's version. Matthew
17.
Yeah. Look at Matthew 17 and 17 and then look up that word there, perverted. Pull that up there, that word that's translated as perverted. Diastrepho? Diastrepho? To distort, misinterpret, or morally corrupt, perverse, turn away. Why is he talking to the disciples and talking about this faithlessness, this unbelieving thing that that's happening with them, and relating it to, or like kind of grouping it together with perversion? Which this word here is to turn away or to corrupt or to misinterpret. Is it because that they're misrepresenting Yeshua when they're trying to go and do this thing that is supposed to be representing Yeshua? To distort. It literally means to distort. Is it because of the fact that as his disciples, as the representatives that he sent out, who are supposed to be operating by faith, they obviously at that time weren't, they didn't have enough faith. And so just by the simple fact of them kind of being of little faith at that time, maybe that's why he's saying that there's a perversion. Like there's a connection here between the faithlessness and the perversion. I'm saying potentially the perversion is the faithfulness. What was you going to say?
I mean, like, if I came upon someone like that, I might be a little afraid. I might be like, what is really happening with this person? I could just imagine them just not really knowing what, And then whenever they said it was from childhood, how this person always been.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know.
And then so when you think about the idea of it being from childhood, then that spirit that's there, that's his home. He lives there. Like, he's not even just visiting. Like, you ain't just gonna come up into my situation and tell me to go somewhere. I live here. He's like a squatter. Right? He got me good.
And so you
Might be
report-
too long of a question, but how does that happen to the child?
I say that I can't.
That's might be too long of a question, but how does that happen to the child?
I mean, I think a child is just as susceptible as anyone else. I would say.
It can happen
This
in
is
the womb.
not just an isolated situation. We've seen other places where people are bringing their children to Messiah. Like, we're human beings. I think that children are probably more susceptible. Like, why don't it happen to more children? Because they would be more susceptible to just, it's interesting whenever they kind of do these tests of children. I guess the things that I thought about it in terms of watching TV, for instance. But now, it's more about these devices and things. But when you look at like your kids and they're sitting there looking at something and they're kind of just tuned in to it. Whatever they're tuned into, that stuff is just it's just downloading down into them because they're just so focused on that thing. And then you're sitting up there talking to them, Johnny, come here and do this or that. And then you gotta like tap them like, Johnny, are you there? Like, I don't mean Johnny. Just so happen. But like it's like you gotta wake them up out of it.
Trance, yeah.
Because they're in a trance, right? They're just focused in, but we're saying trance, but it's really just, you're just focused in on what's happening.
Well, hold on. That specific example, that is a trance.
I'm saying this, I like the word trance, but I'm saying like if we can just, my wife, she likes to just rename things. I just wanted to rename it so that we could think about it in another way. But it is a trance. It's absolutely like you in a trance. Like somebody had to come and wake you up. But I'm saying that children, for whatever reason, that they're easily like that. I don't know why. So you're saying how could it just happen? I'm saying that's how they are. Because they don't have like the
They don't have
shielding.
defenses, yeah.
The defenses
They
is
don't
the
have
word.
defensive. They undeveloped because it can happen in a womb. They, like womb trauma and stuff like that. Like the environment, like everything matters. The thing in the world they teach us is that if you only have a certain experience with something, the effect of it may not be as great. Oh, you were in a womb when this happened, but a mom going through something that can't transfer to a baby if she's pregnant with that child. Like, that's a real thing. And so people can be born with certain levels of trauma and the child act a certain way. You're like, oh, I did this stuff with the child and this and that. But because of that trauma, everything's spiritual. You can't see it, but there's layers to reality that are beyond us.
Yeah.
Even like Yeshua, that's why he was like able to look and be like, okay, just bring them to me. Because he can understand the layers of reality that we're in. And so that's why. I mean,
Yeah. And it's interesting that, I wasn't going to talk about this, but it's interesting that when you look at kind of the rabbinic thought process on these types of things where when the parents kind of get involved in these, we'll just say, illicit activities, they might not necessarily even be affected by this thing that they're doing, but they've done something that affects their children. And so it may not even be anything that the child was even exposed to. It was something that the parent was exposed to, and then the repercussion of that thing is something that happens to the child from a spiritual perspective. And so it could be, I'm saying it could be any number of things that can happen. You know, we think about our kids and they're innocent, why this and that. But that's why it's so important for us to, as parents, to be protectors of our children and to be able to be that shield in this, you know, in that growing stage. You know, people, we look in the scriptures and there's places where Yeshua comes to heal this one or that one, and the question is, like, what did their parents do? Like, why is the child blind? What did the parents do? What's the sin that happened that caused them to be this or that? Right? There's a connection between, like, the kid didn't have to do anything necessarily. It could be just something that the child was exposed to because of the parents. But I think that, I won't go too far off. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I think that the idea here is that the disciples at this place in the game should have been able to do what needed to be done here with this child, and Yeshua chastises them and connects perversion to unbelieving or faithlessness. I want to think about this idea of the fact that because of Yeshua, because of the Ruach HaKodesh, because of our relationship with the Master Yeshua, we have access to power, just like the disciples. Go over to 2 Corinthians chapter 10. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3. Read verses 3 through 5.
For though we walk in the flesh, we do not fight according to the flesh. For the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim for overthrowing strongholds, overthrowing reasonings and every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim, taking captive every thought to make it obedient to the Messiah.
This is a pretty powerful, I would say, verse that I think is necessary for us as believers in Messiah to be able to understand, both understand and utilize. Because just like the disciples, we have power. We have access to power by faith. If we're not operating by faith, we're actually operating in perversion. Because we say that we're followers of Messiah. We say that we believe in Messiah. We say that that he has brought us to a particular place. we have to understand that this life that we live in is a spiritual, there's spiritual things happening. We see this all over the place with Yeshua going around. These people got all of these problems. A lot of the physical problems that these people are having is connected back to spiritual things. There's a fight going on, and it don't have nothing to do with your body, your flesh, your carnality. It has everything to do with the spirit.
Yeah.
And so he said, for the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but they're mighty though. They're powerful. What are they for? Overthrowing strongholds. This boy over here, this son, had a stronghold on him. That devil set up shop in his body and wasn't trying to go nowhere. The power of the Ruach HaKodesh is able to overthrow those things by faith.
Yep.
It said that these weapons that we fight with are able to overthrow reasonings, strongholds, and reasonings. These things, these thoughts that get in their mind and say, you can't do that.
Yep.
You should never be able to do that because of this, this, and that. These reasonings. All of these things that, how am I supposed to do that? And then you believe it too.
Well, I was thinking the Wiz, you can't win.
Oh my goodness. That's exactly right. The Wiz.
The Wiz is a classic.
You ever see The Wiz? The Wiz.
Got that on
It's a
Blu-ray.
classic. Right? When you think about those crows, those wasn't nothing but some evil spirits
Yeah.
making the scarecrow believe that he couldn't get down off of that thing when all he had to do was just take his arm out of the thing and jump down off of it. He wasn't chained to that thing up there.
Yeah.
All he had to do was get down. He had legs, but them crows made him think he couldn't use his legs and walk. Because they had these reasonings in his mind and they had control over his mind. But the weapons that you fight with give you the ability to overthrow those reasonings. It says right here, Paul says. And every high matter that exalts itself, so strongholds, whatever they may be, reasonings, whatever they may be, and then he just does like a catch-all, every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim. Everything that you want to sit up here and make it be more powerful than the Most High, that you want to sit up here and follow and believe when the Most High said that you're able to do all things.
Yep.
Anything that raises itself up and higher than the Most High that you believe, you actually got the weapons and power to be able to cast that thing down.
Yep.
Every thought that comes into your mind that's contrary to what the Master Yeshua has said that you're able to accomplish and do, you're able to take that thing and tie it up and put it in captivity and bring that thought into obedience to Messiah.
A quick testimony on that is, so we got plenty of children, and children in their early stages develop certain things, and so-called they got technologies to take genetic markers and say, oh, you got a predisposition for this, or this is going to happen, and this, and that. And I know Micah and I forget which other child they was concerned with. I think even Jacob, they talked about your leg was going to develop a certain way and this and that. Trying to scare us. So, to be like, and I'm like, look, first of all, it's a baby. Let the baby be on earth for a little while. They can't walk, they can't do nothing, and you're trying to put something on this person before the Most High even got time to work on it. we all gonna come in here, and the thing is, as a child, you're developing. All your systems gotta come online. All your systems, everything has to get put in place so you can grow and be what you need to be. But now they think that they're so smart, and then they UPMCs or whatever you want to call it, and predisposition and this technology. Yeah, because the Most High in week number 5 of the baby being alive, this thing that you're looking at is going to develop and catch up. Because I'll take them, because Ebony ain't in here, because it happened plenty of times. They'll say, oh, this is going to happen with this child. I'm like, don't worry about that. I'll pray over the baby. Then the next time they go to the hospital, oh, perfect. Of course they're perfect. Of course they're fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, and the thing is too, is when these people tell you stuff, you can make something real that's not real by believing it. And you can make things worse if it is real, if you're trying to get rid of it. You give it power by believing it. You want to heal? That's why Yeshua said, but going back to what we reading in there, he always talk about people's belief. Y'all don't believe. Y'all want to heal, you got to believe to be healed. And there's steps according to it, but that's one of the main things. You got to believe that you can be healed.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. Faith. You got to have faith.
Mhm.
You got to walk in faith. To not walk in faith is perversion.
Yep.
You taking the truth and tying it up and twisting it up and making it be backwards and upside down. You taking the truth and make it be something other than the truth if it's perversion. You taking this right thing and causing it to be something else. And so when we look over here in Mark chapter 9, look over in Mark chapter 9 and 23, he said, if you are able to believe, all is possible to him who believes.
All is possible. No matter what's going on, all is possible.
And that goes for the Father. That goes for the disciples who wasn't able to do it. He said, read verse 24 right there.
And immediately the father of the children cried out and said with tears, I believe, Master, help my unbelief.
What in the world do that mean? What kind of double talk is that? I believe, but help my unbelief. Do he believe or don't he believe? Which one is it? Huh? Which one is it? Is he saying that he believes, but then help my unbelief? He don't believe. You can't have both. You can't both believe and not believe simultaneously, I don't think. I don't know what's happening right there in verse 24. I believe, Master, but help my unbelief. Because the disciples, they believed, didn't they? But they wasn't able to heal the son. Obviously because of unbelief. There was some kind of blockage that was happening with the disciples that caused them to not be able to walk fully in faith. That was the problem. Yeshua come along and just rebuke the thing. Get out of here. You deaf and dumb spirit. I command you. He did say that too. Never come here again. You gotta say all this stuff. Get out. Because he could just go out and go around the corner, wait for them all to leave, and then come back. He said, get out of here and don't you come back here no more.
Chase them down the block.
And to me, I just want to say, when you look at Yeshua, he's just very regular and straightforward with these things. Like I feel like the way that we are taught about these kind of spiritual things, it makes it be kind of weird. I don't know, lack of a better word. He just said, get out of here and don't come back here. Just a kind of matter of fact. Either there wasn't no ceremony that happened or not. Get out of here, don't come back. He said,
Yeah.
never again enter into him. And that was it. And he got out. But it's an interesting thing that is said by Yeshua later whenever the disciples talk about this, like, oh, you know, what happened? Like, why wasn't we able to do this? How come we couldn't do it? Read verse 29 again.
Verse 29, and he said to them, it is impossible for this kind to come out except through prayer and fasting.
Okay, so my question is, because we'll see later, I don't know, I think it didn't happen yet. The Pharisees come to the disciples and question the disciples and say, how come y'all don't be fasting when we fast? And then Yeshua's like, what they got to fast for? And I'm here right here with them. When I'm gone, maybe that's a whole other thing. But right now, I'm with them, so they don't got no reason to fast. And I think that goes back to the idea of Yeshua being so kind of upset with his disciples, because the fact that they got all access to Messiah and them not being able to do certain things, as far as what Yeshua seems to be saying, there's no excuse for that, for them. Because, you know, when you think about the idea of prayer and fasting, there's it's a means to an end. But what's the end? I wonder. If we say prayer and fasting is a means to an end, I'm saying, what's the end? Like, what do you accomplish within oneself by prayer and fasting? Because whatever that thing is the thing that was hindering the disciples to cast out this devil here. And by the way, while Yeshua was walking around with them, they wasn't fasting. But now he's saying you couldn't have even done it without prayer and fasting. So I'm saying, what's the end of prayer and fasting? Where do it get you to? What do it do for you?
It gets you to, I'm going to just give y'all the answer.
I know, because nobody got the answer. Go ahead.
I'm going to just tell you, look. I'm going to get from my research. Everything operates on a frequency. They know spectrometers, Krillin photography. When you look at all matter, it's held together at a certain frequency. When you pray and first, your prayer, you're petitioning the Most High for something. When you fast, you're depriving the body of what it needs, the body of what it needs. Through that process, you dedicating yourself back to the Most High. The natural order that the Most High made your body in can do it now, because you're only breathing oxygen. So all your systems can just focus on being optimal. Then you pray in that process, because anytime you eat something, you lower your body's frequency. There's science that proves it. As soon as you eat, your energy levels drop because your digestive system starts working, so that takes energy from your body. So when you fast and you pray, you get to these levels that you go through, and it takes us a week. It's a certain thing that happens, and it keeps compounding. The longer you do it, different things kick in. So the longer you do it, the higher your frequency goes. And so if you're trying to cast a demon out, demons are lower frequency. They're a lower frequency vibration. And so when you approach a demon, if you don't got a high enough frequency to command it out, it's not going to go out. Research it, delve in a little bit, but from what I get from it, from what I learned, this is the only conclusion that I could come to. And it makes sense to me because there's ways you can breathe to raise your frequency. Because if, like I said, if a demon's more powerful than you, it's been inhabiting this little boy since his birth, or since he's been young. Yeshua, the type that fasts 40 days and 40 nights. So his frequency, like he was able to touch and heal, because he's at a high vibration, so he can touch you and heal you. It's a real thing. And so, like I said, if you eat, you lower your vibration. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I think he said that.
And so, I'm saying that when you think about what it is that the Messiah is saying over here, the end is you being in without distractions, without blockings. Hosea likes to say cholesterol between you and the Father. And so I'm saying that the issue that the Master Yeshua has with his disciples is that because of his close proximity with his disciples, because of the fact that they're right there with Yeshua at all times, they're so close to the Master, that they don't have the circumstance they shouldn't have had the circumstance to draw them away where they wasn't in tune with the Father to be able to do such a thing. That's what I'm saying. Because he clearly was wroth with them because of their inability, and said that they was literally perverting his brand, really. And so when you think about where it gets us to, like what you're saying, when you think about the idea of prayer, you're connecting to the Most High. When you talk about the idea of fasting, you're removing these carnal thoughts and desires and physical attachments that you have to this plane and refocusing back to the Most High. And so if you're not properly connected to the Almighty, you can't be, it renders you defenseless against certain spiritual adversaries. He said it's impossible for this kind of thing to come out except for, he's saying fasting and prayer. But I'm saying what is the thing that fasting and prayer gets you to is kind of that balance within yourself with the Most High, and that depravity of carnality. And so if you're overly attached to carnality and the things of this world, how can you function spiritually? How? He said it's impossible for you to do it without recentering oneself back to the Most High. And again, we can't not think about Yeshua's reaction to his disciples. He said, "Oh, faithless generation." He's talking to these people who should have been walking in power and might, but because of their whatever, they wasn't able to. And that thing that separated, he was just gone They were just gone away from him physically, however long that was. But when he brings it back to the idea of prayer and fasting, that's just about you reconnecting to the Most High. But he's there. I'm here with you, he says to the disciples. He's going to say, if you've seen the Father, you've seen me. And so the idea is that actual connection to the Most High that we constantly pull away and pick away from when we just live in this world, in this life. And so it becomes necessary for us to be able to have a reconnection to the Most High prayer and have a disconnection from these physical things and carnality fasting. Go ahead.
I think about how girls have, this kind of, it ties into the frequency thing. Because, they have these violins. I guess he has a guitar. The violin sounds horrible when it's out of tune. They can play this, they can touch the notes in the same places, and it is like somebody screeching at a chalkboard.
Yeah.
And they're playing in the right place, but it don't sound right.
Yeah.
And then, it's all about that tension. And it's all, what I mean? Like, you gotta tighten the strings. And I'm sure the guitar sounds bad, but the violin that has the higher notes just sound.
They probably said everything they were supposed to have said.
They probably said, come out and don't
They
come
probably
back.
said the exact same thing. Come out of here and don't never come back.
Multiple times.
And then nothing happened
Yes.
because they wasn't in tune.
Oh, yeah.
They wasn't in tune. Like, we got to think about like what's happening when you do those things. Like, where's it taking you to? It's taking you back to a place of reconnecting to the Most High. It's taking you back to a place that's different from what this guy's saying is that I believe, but help my unbelief. Like, it's like we have to understand that faithlessness, Yeshua's teaching us here, faithlessness is perversion. When we allow for these things to rule over us in this life, you've allowed something to creep in. And if you can't if you can't speak to that thing and have power and control over that thing, it's only because you're not really connected properly. Like there's chinks in your faith armor, and you really believe that thing is more powerful than you when it isn't.
I think you should have said, I believe that you can help my unbelief. Or maybe.
I don't know how you make that better. To me, I feel like you see his unbelief is evident. Like, you can't have both. Like, you can't have faith a little bit. There's a difference between saying that, and he says a faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. But that's not talking about having kind of mingled with doubt faith. It's just talking about a little bit of faith, not faith mixed with doubt. And he's not talking about actually moving mountains. I just want to say that. It's metaphorical. Nobody's making that tree get up and putting it over there just because you believe it. I just want to say that. But you are able to accomplish things that from a normal perspective you wouldn't think could be able to happen by faith. It's a metaphor. You don't expect for people to actually pick up a mountain and misplace the mountain. But we got things in our lives that we done turned into mountains, and a mountain's an immovable thing. and we let these mountains, I don't know however many years people want to say it takes to make a mountain, but when you sit up here and allow for these things, these strongholds to be built up, these mountains in your life, and then it becomes this immovable thing that just it can't go anywhere. But we can have faith, real faith in Messiah, not mixed with doubt, but faith, firmness. That's real small. and that faith is able to do more than what you thought that it should be able to do. But not mixed with doubt, like this guy. What he's talking about is something that's mixed with doubt. Because obviously, when it's mixed with doubt, this is where it gets perverted. And this is the place that we can't allow for it to go. And so it's interesting when we think about this now, thinking about back to Pentecost, right? And the fact that those people, all the other people that stood around and watched this thing happen, they had some belief, but they had some unbelief too, I think. But Pentecost, his situation was unadulterated. He saw this thing that was going on that he knew shouldn't have been going on the way that it was, and he took action immediately. Because, and then now, mixing these two things together, thinking about the fact that, these people are not living something that happened to them way back in those days, and these things don't happen to us in these days right now. These same things is going on right now, even right now, probably worse, I would say.
I mean, our children are at a camp full of children with behavioral health issues.
I don't want to say they're full of demons, but only because I'm not going to say the rest of the sentence.
I'll say they're full of demons. I'll say that.
I don't know what the difference is. And so, without a fortified connection to the Most High, the result of prayer and fasting, how are you defending against these things? I think this is the point here. Like when we look at the Master, again, he says what he says and refers it back to this means. But that end is what we have to understand, what this is. It just so happens that there's no other way really to get to that end without the means that he's referring to. But we don't want to just focus on the idea of praying and fasting, because what is it that it does? Like, you could not eat and pray and then it don't do anything if these things ain't really connected to each other. Like, what am I doing this thing for? Like, what's the point? And so understanding that what is happening is in fact the disconnect from carnality and the things that's associated with it, and the reconnect to the Most High in the Spirit is what the end is of this thing. And we have to know that, and that's why we went over to 2 Corinthians. We have to know that this is the world that we're in. Like, we're in this world, and there's things that are fighting against us. And there ain't nothing worse than being in a fight and you don't even know that you in a fight. You don't know that you actually getting beat down and held down and locked down. And meanwhile, you don't even realize it. But that's where we're at in this world. When you walking around and looking at these people who don't know the Master Yeshua and don't have him in their life and don't even understand that there's somebody that's controlling you that you don't even know. And they're taking you down a place where you don't want to go. I wasn't even trying to rhyme right there. But that's what's happening. And that the thing that Yeshua provides for us is the ability to be able to escape that thing and bring us and keep us on another path. But we have to be able to stay connected to the Master. And that's I think the point of Yeshua, what he's saying to his disciples. He's chastising them at this point. And in doing so, he's helping us to understand that this is where we have to be able to be at all times. Okay, so does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments about any of those things? It's very important for us in closing to be able to understand the importance of faith in our lives, the importance of not allowing things to creep in and to cause us to doubt in any way. It's so important for us to be able to understand and not only, say that you understand, but literally understand that because of what Yeshua has done for you, because of the spirit that he has made available and placed on the inside of those that believe in him, because of that, there's nothing that is able to hold us back from the place that the Most High is trying to bring us, unless we allow for that thing to happen. And we have to continually, keep in mind that the Most High wants for it. It's so interesting because when you think about the Torah, the thing that mainstream Christianity wants to say that we don't need, but when you think about what it's doing by making all these things that one does in the morning and in the noonday and at the evening, it's when you do all these things, all of these offerings and sacrifices that are made every day, all day, for everything. The idea is staying connected to the Most High. When you think about the idea of what we've seen over in the Torah portion with dealing with these other peoples, the whole idea is just staying connected to the Most High, not allowing all these external influences to be the thing that lead us and guide us. It's so important to be able to understand the point of all of these things. And I think that this is a good example when we look at Yeshua here and his disciples, where he was just gone for a little while. And that little bit of distance caused that weakness in the disciples where they wasn't able to do this thing. Now, it was a substantial thing. But the problem was that disconnection. And so we have to treat this life that we live like anything else, where it needs to be maintained. It's not some situation where I just go and I find out the good news and then that's it. Like I gotta keep at this thing. I gotta stay connected with the Messiah. I gotta keep on growing in faith. so that I'm continually able to be the light that he calls for me to be. All right, so I guess we'll be done for now. Y'all willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat to continue looking at the Torah portion and the words of the Master. So for now, we'll say Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.